Hello and welcome to CherrySTEM 2.0. And we are here with Direhawk and Doge, and of course my lovely co-host Richard Rawl. And we will be picking up where we left off on the salacious and sometimes sexy STEM conversations, including as well as tech and gaming, which we all happen to be big fans of. And so this week we are having a conversation with Doge and Direhawk, who just spent some time at the SVVR conference in San Jose, which is a virtual reality sort of expo, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they witnessed there and in general how the event went. So I guess just to prime you guys and to give us a little bit of a understanding of what the event was like, how many days was the event? Was it like a one-day thing or was it multiple days? And was it like a regular convention? If you could just give a brief description of the sort of logistics of the conference, that would be I think interesting for our viewers.
Go ahead.
One of you.
Well, I can leave that up to Brian. All I can contribute, I'll contribute. I think it was 3 days.
Yeah, it was a 3-day thing in Silicon Valley VR Expo, hence SVVR, and it was from March 29th to the 31st in the San Jose Convention Center.
So was it like panels or talks, or how was the format?
Yeah, they had both of those. So they had like there were panel discussions. I didn't go to any of them. I think Jonathan, didn't you go to some?
Yeah, I went to some of the panels.
Oh, what else was there, Brian, besides panels? Or what did you spend your time doing?
Well, the main event was basically the I guess you'd call it the exhibition floor or the show floor, and then where there was a big space with lots of booths devoted to various developers and companies that were showing off technology, or they were showing off new headsets, or they were showing off virtual reality experiences, or maybe they had other things they bring to the table. There was a lot of different things. For example, there was a section on using virtual reality as a method of wellness, sort of like for things like meditation or yoga or whatever. There were some people that were showing off virtual reality sound systems, like made to make the sound better. You know, there was a little.
Hey, fuck those guys! They're infringing on my patent. Go ahead. Anyway, sorry.
The virtual sound.
Yeah, I have a patent on it that's almost 15 years old.
Really? Oh.
Yep. And they're completely violating that patent, but there's not much I can do about it.
Do you know? Well, I don't know because I didn't try it out. Because to be honest, while I was there, I was like not interested in the sound. I figured that I would probably just focus on the visual stuff. So I don't even know if how good it was, if at all. Like it might not be like yours, but yeah, there was that, and there was even, I don't know. It was just showing like a lot of the ways in which various developers were taking advantage of this. I wouldn't call it new because it's been around for a while, but this sort of, growing enterprise, and they were basically all doing different things with it. Some people were doing gaming experiences, obviously. Some people were doing entertainment, virtual tourism, virtual conferences, social media, and even like I said,
for general audience, or was it because a lot of times you got those you got consumer electronic shows, but then you have like the conferences that are geared towards like the developers who are developing an industry.
It's like a circle jerk kind of thing, like a wank fest.
Well, on one hand, you can have something like a trade show, I think, like a AVN, for instance, or an Exotica, where you have exhibitors who are showing the general public their wares, and it's open to the general public. Versus, you can have something like, I guess the EA or something like that, where only like journalists and developer inner circle sort of people are invited. So I guess we're just trying to determine which one.
Yeah, with it being in Silicon Valley, a lot of times it's going to be people who are like, hey, use this piece of software for your development, and that's what they're trying to sell there. And it's like, and I was just wondering if it's mixed, or if it's kind of it's both selling to the public as well as to developers and shit like that.
Well, I would actually say that it was mixed, but there was an awful lot of companies. Remember, these are new industries, new companies out there, so they've been looking for more funding for their projects. So they're looking for what's that?
Sorry, it's the Claptrap's little dance
Oh,
song that he does, which is my 420 alarm. Sorry about that. Oh.
no problem. Well, I mean, there were a lot of booths there looking for angel investors to further fund their projects and stuff. But there was a lot of bigger names there. Of course, Oculus was there. Vive didn't have like their own booth, but Oculus did. But a lot of the booths were also using the Vive platform, and then there was all these third-party hardware, piece of hardware that were being developed supporting the Oculus and the Vive, like devices that you would stick on your shoes that would, like, say, track your legs. There was a bodysuit that you could get that is like a $300 suit that you could put on, and you could use it for full body tracking. There was a lot of social VR vendors there that were pushing their social platform. So there was High Fidelity was there, AltSpace was there. There was another one. It was more built on, I guess, art. So it was kind of like, you enter a social platform and it's a place where you create and stuff. But they're building an entire city that you can explore in that. You can spray paint walls, and you can go into spaces and you can create art in that.
Yeah, it was called Hypatia, I think.
Yeah, Hypatia. And then there was an awful lot of, because this is like one of the first rounds of the whole thing. So the big thing was, because they're just learning about how to, create the physics and how to tell stories and stuff. But the first round of games that, there was a lot of games that were based on shooters. There's a lot of shooter type games.
Mm-hmm.
So like one such thing was Project Alice VR. Their thing was like a haptic glove, so that you can interact and you can get your hands in there. But what they were using it on was like a kind of I think it was a shooter, wasn't it? I think you got to try it.
There were two different Alice VR projects. I didn't get to try the shooting one. There was another one that was more like a proof of concept demo thing that let you touch and interact with things. And there were gloves, but I wouldn't say they were haptic, because you didn't feel anything. Like, isn't that what haptics is, where it's supposed to simulate the touch sensation?
Yeah, it's what you get when you press your touch phone. Theoretically, you get that pushback.
Yeah. They didn't do that. However, what it did do was it responded to your hands. Essentially, your hands became like another kind of controller, and you could use it to do things, to interact with the environment. So, for example, one of the things I remember was there were balloons. You could inflate a balloon, and then you could like hold it in your hand and throw it up in the air. There were blocks you could stack, and you could use your hands to grab them. But it wasn't always super responsive, but that was the idea. That you were supposed to be able to grab these objects. But when you would grasp for them, because it didn't have pushback or haptics in the glove, you were grabbing at the air, you could tell, but you were hoping that there would be some kind of a click that would happen between your real self and the virtual object that you were looking at.
Yeah. So, I mean, then there was other technology. Like there was one vendor that was, their company created this kind of augmented reality type toy. So you have these.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And they snap together, and you can customize and make these different types of characters and stuff with all these interchangeable body parts. And then when you put your iPad or something in front of it, and it brings that character kind of like look through a looking glass thing or whatever, and then it creates this world around it. And there's kind of like this mixed reality type thing going on. So that was there. There's a lot of stuff from Japan. There's a hologram that was a
little section to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, they were segregated.
Well,
I think they kind of segregated themselves.
Yeah, they segregated themselves because they didn't speak much in the way of English, and I think they wanted to talk to each other. Except there was one Japanese booth that was all by itself because it was kind of big. It was that one, I think it was called Shoryu or something like that, or no, Hado is what it is. And it's like an augmented reality game where you shoot balls at each other, and you got to like block them and stuff and try to get. It's like two teams, and I guess it's like dodgeball or something.
Yeah.
But I never played it because I just watched what other people were doing, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. But it looked kind of fun.
one demo that you had to sign up to. You couldn't just kind of go in. They were the only one that actually had a booth that was completely like a sealed box you had to go into, because they were trying to keep everything kind of sealed, and they didn't want the press in there, and they didn't want their competition in there. It was Meta 2 with their augmented reality glasses. I wanted to go in there because I had done a pre-order, because I want to use augmented reality for judging my scale of my 3D models that I want to bring into VR. Because one problem I've had was that I've noticed when creating VR worlds is take things that we take for granted, like furniture and stuff like that. The furniture is always out of scale. You go in there and you could have a couch that's like up to your waist, or tables that are, the wrong scale to your characters. So I wanted to be able to overlay my models that I'm modeling, that I have on my computer, but have it so it's modeled and then overlaid into the real world, so I can compare it to real objects. So I was very interested in seeing that, and I tell you, I was blown away by that thing. It literally was going into Star Wars. I mean,
is that the one with the lightsaber and the robots?
Yeah, it was like the holograms that you would see were just like amazing. So
oh, that was the augmented reality thing that you
yeah, it was the Meta 2 thing.
Yeah.
Well, between that and the finger controllers you guys are talking about, I mean, sounds like we're heading into Minority Report territory.
So what was it called? Because I'm curious what the glasses look like.
It's the Meta 2. If you do a search on Meta 2, it's there's one of the founders. He is a neuroscientist. He's got his PhD in neuroscience, and they formed their whole company around the concept of neuroscience. And their goal is to replace TV monitors, computer screens with wearing AR headsets, so that your information is now mixed with your space that you're sitting in, your office or whatever, and you can actually grab the three-dimensional, or the information, and you can stretch it and manipulate it, kind of like an Iron Man. So that's what their mission statement is. That's their goal.
Yeah.
And I would say that the Meta 2, over trying the Microsoft HoloLens. I know Brian's tried the HoloLens.
Wait, have I?
Yeah, you did try the HoloLens. It wasn't a HoloLens booth, but one of the experiences at one of the booths was using a HoloLens.
Oh, okay.
It was the one where they had like a character or a guy, but to see the whole guy, you had to kind of move your head up and down.
I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it
was in one of the Japanese booths.
Yeah, and he couldn't fit completely in your field of view, so you had to move your head around to get it.
Yeah, because of the glasses, the lens on the glasses was just the size of glasses. So that would mean that, if you think about it like this, you're wearing a pair of glasses and you don't tilt your head down and look down, but instead you just direct your eyeballs down, and you might look below the lens, right? Because a lens is only a certain size. Well, if you do that, because this thing isn't big enough to like encompass your entire field of vision, then the augmented reality is cut off. It basically you're only seeing a part of it. So this Meta 2, because I'm on the website now, it's made that it's rounded. It's like kind of large, but it's rounded in front of you. So if you look down, you're still looking at that. Within the field of view, the Meta 2 takes up the entire field of view. So that gives it an enormous edge over the Microsoft Microsoft one.
The differences between the two, though, they both have plus and minuses. Me, I want the ability to have a full immersive experience, and I want the capabilities of the highest experience and graphics possible, and that means it's a tethered experience right now. They're working on a wireless. I don't know if it's going to be an add-on or if it's going to be the Meta 3 or what it is, but so I opted for the Meta 2 over the plus. It's half the price. But when you go to Microsoft HoloLens, it's like twice the price, and it doesn't have the field of view, but it's completely autonomous. It's got its own onboard computer, but you're limited to what that headset can actually render and process. So it's going to have limited functionality. So, So I mean, you basically have to kind of choose what the system that will work best for whatever idea you have, what platform you're building for. So
Well, that leads into actually one of the questions I had. If you guys could, if it's possible, to summarize or at least to divide up the floor, the convention floor, like what was the predominant, what were the groups that were predominantly represented? Was it like gaming? Was it social? Was it like, what was the biggest sort of
I
element
would
in the VR community?
I would say social.
Hmm.
I would say social. Everywhere you looked, it was social. Even platforms that weren't specifically talking about social, it was about the idea of like there was this one booth, and it was the ability to be able to do, say, presentations and stuff, and have people hop into their VR headset, and you can use a web camera, and it will overlay a silhouette of you onto a virtual stage. And when they go into this thing, you'd be sitting in the audience taking in the lecture.
Hmm.
That would be like a social thing, and another person that would be in there, being part of that whole thing, would be able to, have a chat with you, and they'd be beside you. So that's another social thing, but it wasn't purely intended just to go there to hang out with people, but you could talk with other people. There's
Yeah, collaborative spaces and stuff. I think that's like been the big thing that they've been kind of going towards. Hey, I'm sure I've asked this before, but have you seen the Sword Art Online anime?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm curious if they had any connection between like brainwave scanning and VR. Did you notice any of that technology crossover there?
I didn't see anything on brainwave scanning, but that might be next year.
Yeah, because I mean, my favorite headset. There's this a TED talk we can put in the low bar or whatever. Where I mean, where a person's never even used it before was able to, using their mind, move an object around on the screen. I mean, and it like quickly was able to read a brand new person, and thinking left, thinking right, and moving things around. And this is something that, like, normally whenever you're reading brainwaves, it's like there's the difficulty of getting all of the electrodes on your head. You got to put this conducting gel stuck to your. It's just a huge pain in the butt. But the people at Emotive, EMOTIV, created a helmet that you just put it on. You just put it on, and it instantly picks up your brain waves and without all the nonsense. So putting those together. I mean, I know there's already a development kit out there. I'm surprised that nobody's put those two things together yet.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't actually see anything about that, although I have heard of it, and I'm glad you brought it up because I can see, broad applications. Like the big thing right now is coming up with a way to kind of interface, because in these VR spaces, because we can't see our keyboards anymore and we're used to keyboards and mice. So if you can interface directly with your mind, or
it's gonna be far superior.
Yeah, you're going to be able to flip through information and do all kinds of things just through thought alone. So
yeah, the funny thing is, because it's reading brainwaves, I've used a neurofeedback device before where you try to control things on the screen using your brainwaves, and there's a practice to it. If you practice long enough, you can get better at it. And the funny thing is, I think there's going to be once this new technology is advanced, where people are using brainwaves to interface with VR spaces, there's going to be a whole new generation of people who have trained their brain on manipulating their own brainwaves for the purpose of interfacing with virtual reality, and there'll be a generation of people who are just superior to even those of us who really embraced all of computer technology, have lived deeply with computer technology, and they'll still kind of have this like advantage over us, and because of course gaming will go that direction and everything. It's like I said, I have to send you this TED talk, or at least put it in the low bar, because it's really neat to watch the whole thing, how well it works, and how it's in being able to see that it's going to go that way. It is.
Well, I mean, I see this as kind of like a triathlon. I mean, the first horses have kind of like gone out the gates and that, and of course gaming and all that stuff's come out there. And education's another big one. But the next set of horses that are going to come out would be the ones that are researching this technology, and also further developments of haptic devices and eye tracking technology and these things. So when you have the first horses that are talking about education, or maybe re-education, and entertainment and all these other things, there's going to be a point where, they kind of, converge. And I can imagine, take for instance, the brain stuff you're talking about, what kind of things they're going to come up with, say, for education.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's, and not only that, the number of applications. Because imagine a person who's, I mean, okay, like I watch my parents. You put a game controller in a older person's hand, and they just, they could be a skilled individual even, and they just kind of fumble at it. They don't, and that's a pretty straightforward system. And they, or they have a problem just manipulating a mouse, and it seems like, wow, I've seen you do find things with your hands that take a lot of skill, but somehow you can't figure out how to use a mouse. It's kind of hard to, because you've been using a mouse like most of your life, and so you adapted to it kind of younger than an older generation. So it's kind of hard to see that, and I think that we'll end up kind of seeing those sorts of weirdness as well, because the amount of training that they'll be able to get from a very early age at manipulating their interface device being their brain. And so I think that's really going to be neat.
Well, what I see is, like, as our technology advances, it advances in complexity, but on the surface, its purpose goal is to simplify the user interface so that these tools become more intuitive and don't have a shallower and shallower learning curve, to the point where, it seems to be that it's evolving to be where it just, innate. They're trying to build human systems for computers, so that we just intuitively do it, because that's how humans actually work. And that's part of my passion and interest for VR, because we use our whole bodies in there. We get to interact with our information, instead of have to learn systems to figure out how to interact with it. We can there'll be a level of intuition. I mean, a mouse and things like that, they have a level of intuitive to them. But then there's using a mouse to be a pro level gamer. There's there's intuitive, and then there's specialized. You should be able to create devices that are intuitive, certainly, but then once they are intuitive, there's the ability to specialize and get better with it. And I guess that's one of those things going on, all the way back to the freaking Matrix, when they're talking about look, his neural kinetics are off the chart, whereas apparently it's the idea is his interface with the network was like off the chart, and I think you'll see that same thing with these systems. Going back, I mean, I was interested in VR, like I said. I mean, I have a patent on a virtual reality headset. It's almost 15 years old now, and like the other thing that interests me is they have not yet perfected volumetric displays. What I mean by that is the common sense idea of like a hologram that you would see in front of you in space. And I've actually developed a system to do that, but it was just like when I developed my the VR thing from 15 years ago, there just wasn't a market for anybody to to even listen to me, and I'm stuck at that same point again now. It's like, oh, here's another invention where maybe 15 years from now somebody will actually be doing this. But it's I can share your passion about the whole VR and technological advancement stuff, so I'm really enjoying hearing about this. Well, have you heard of the company Magic Leap?
No, I don't think so.
Well, Magic Leap, they haven't, leaked a lot of information of, how far they are along on this. But from what I have seen, I mean, there's a lot of buzz on Magic Leap right now. But what they've been working on is, it looks like it's volumetric type stuff, but it's to do with augmented reality type stuff. And I don't know what they're using, but they're somehow kind of refracting. They're kind of projecting the image data through the glass itself that's in front of you. So it's some sort of a prism technology, but it sounds like volumetric kind of way of displaying information. I can't go into great detail with it, but I'm just saying that it sounds kind of like what you're getting at with that. So,
Yeah.
there are still people working on this. They know that that's
Well,
what
I
the
mean, a
Holy
lot of the
Grail.
displays they do there's a variety of ways in which they try to do it with with, like, for instance, just the going all the way back to those I remember video games, 10 years ago. No shit, longer ago than that, where what they would have is a typical illusionist trick of a half silvered mirror set at an angle, and so it's actually reflecting something that's below, that's below the surface, and you're looking at it, and because it's at an angle, the way that the light plays on it, it looks like it's in 3 dimensions, but it's because it's the way that it's being projected on a surface, and that is one thing. But what I'm talking about is literally like being able to produce an image in midair, without any kind of. There was one that you could like sweep your hand through, and in fact, I could
Oh, I
actually,
see.
make it
I
like
see.
have haptic feedback. Yeah.
Well, what it says here for Magic Leap is what they're attempting to do. What it is attempting, it's a head-mounted virtual retina display, which
Oh,
superimposes, 3D computer generated imagery over real-world objects. So it projects in your retina.
Oh, that's neat. I've been wondering how that would work because of course you'd have to, you wouldn't be able to look around, because your eye would be, if you looked towards the source. So yeah, I'd be curious to check that out too. But it seemed, did they have anything like that at the show?
No, but a lot of the people I were talking about, there was whispers about Magic Leap. They're all want to know what's going on there because.
Yeah, what if it's just hype? That's unfortunately a lot of times it turns out that when they're keeping it secret and stuff like that, that there's more hype than reality there, and that's
Yeah.
you never know. It's like, because sometimes they deliver, sometimes it's just hype.
Another one is Apple. Apple's the only company left that hasn't said anything about VR other than it's interesting. And it's funny because in the 90s, they actually have a patent themselves on virtual reality. So they've been very hush-hush. I suspect that what they're going to be working on is more AR-related stuff and their cell phones. So you'll see cell phones with multiple cameras on them and for picking up, the data they need for AR-related stuff. So that's what I suspect. I think they're going the AR route personally.
Yeah, it seems like augmented reality is the way to go. I mean, there's so many different ways in which that can be played out. Like another one of my favorite animes. What was that called? It was Eden of the East, where they kind of did this, sort of augmented reality thing where you could get information about the things that you were viewing, and I think that that is going to be like right around the corner, where everywhere you go, you're going to be able to just kind of look at things and have additional information that's catered to your settings, etc. That'll be available to you, as you're just walking around.
Well, then there's another thing. The guy that created, I forget his name, but they've been working on applying metadata to the world of things. So there will be metadata put on real world objects, everything from trees to grass to just everything. So basically, imagine having an AR headset and you could, pull up information on basically everything that's in the physical world. So that would be handy, say, for instance, if you're and you need to get an instant blueprint of when the whole structure, and you need a floor, a map of the entire place, and you need to know where possible the fire might have come from, all kinds of information. Maybe there will be smart pipes that'll be able to give them feedback and give them a running history of where the fire first started and which would be the safest place to go, and if there's tanks down there that might explode, or maybe you're a factory owner and I hear about there's IBM. They got this Watson program. So basically, the plant, if your plant is hooked up to the Watson system, basically the plant will let it know that there's a part that's about to go down, and it's going to pre-order everything automatically and hire the right person to install that part ahead of time. So it's going to be able to maintain itself. But I can see this information kind of getting mixed into mixed reality, and I'm seeing companies using VR, for instance, for training purposes. because it's safer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For like medical things and such, or
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or the stuff I'm interested in, and that is history. Like I went into one experience which was actually exploring the Titanic. And that was really kind of fascinating to be able to walk along the Titanic and be in there and go into the ballroom. And then, of course, they had like a movie screen up there, and you could watch a documentary about the Titanic and interact with stuff. And
There's some infinite learning potential there.
yeah,
And visiting
so
potential. They've done, I think there was even some studies done on the effect of sort of, I don't want to say imagining, but kind of like that, because you can like sit in your like a chair and like a recliner and imagine that you're in a fast car going fast, and some of the same areas will be activated as actually going in a fast car. So it's interesting for that crossover experience, because I mean we have things like in Japan, I believe they actually don't have, well, certain areas anyway. There's lacking of nature inside certain cities, to the point where they've like constructed uh, like paper statues and just art installations to imitate nature. And so little things like that that kids are being deprived of, that could potentially be implemented through technology, and especially once VR gets cheaper and better, because currently it seems like all the major VR headsets that are out on the market anyway for the average individual are not so good. But then again, what are we using it for?
yeah.
For games, yeah, they're not necessarily good yet, but as you guys are mentioning, social is a big thing, and it seems like that's the one that is actually being used currently. Like Second Life, for instance, just to have kind of an example of a parallel, you may not use it yourselves or may not think that other people do, but there's a lot of people still using Second Life and doing like having lives and personalities and alter egos and everything, very deeply so on Second Life. And what I've been seeing VR used for successfully so far is for like social hangout groups where all you are is just like a floating, anime, like not even an anime head, but like that Xbox avatar, just like a really simple cartoony head, and that's all you are. But you can like meet with people and sort of be with them in person in a way, which is a powerful thing. So it's interesting that that's how it's developing currently.
Well, it's kind of funny how you mentioned Second Life, because Second Life has already been working on developing their successor, and it's called Sansar. That's SANSAR. And basically, it's a completely immersive virtual reality experience. And I got tipped off about that because I was talking to one of the developers, and I was talking about that I do photogrammetry and my interest in history and creating, completely accurate renderings of actual historic places and buildings and architecture and stuff. And this is the kind of thing they're going for. They're going for, photorealistic, fully immersive experiences. So, and that's going to be the successor to their Second Life. So we're going to be able to go and see the Great Pyramids, and they will be the actual renders of the Great Pyramids, and be able to go on field trips, and I don't know, the education and social experiences are going to just be amazing.
Is there anything
But,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, like, right now, like, the big thing that I wanted to learn going to the conference was, because I've been looking for, creating a social space for our patrons and for the people that follow us. And because I've been using VR for a while now, and I've seen all the advantages, and just, I don't know how much fun it is to actually, go into a virtual world and socialize. You got the sense of presence when you go in VR that you can't get through just purely text chat. So I wanted to see if there was any platforms that we could use as a jumping point to do that. So I saw their strengths and their weaknesses. So one of them was high fidelity. I really liked high fidelity. Their concept is that, but the problem with high fidelity is your own computer becomes the server. So unless you have like a high speed internet connection, it's hard to be able to serve up, especially if you have a lot of people connecting to your server. So bandwidth was the issue, especially for me, at least right now. So I had to strike high fidelity off. Then I went to AltSpace. Now AltSpace is great, but it's their thing isn't the bandwidth issue. Their issue is being able to come up with the tools that so that people can create their own custom worlds. And it's more of a kind of like a canned experience. It's all the worlds in there will look like AltSpace. So I didn't want that. I wanted something that would be, you know, modeled more towards Honey Badger Brigade. And then I eventually settled on VRChat because it uses the Unity engine, and the Unity engine is used for, you know, that's what they've been, it's the Unity engine and the Unreal engine. Those are the two main engines that are being used right now for creating, you know, virtual reality experiences, whether it's the online social stuff or it's games that you buy and you download onto your computer and then run them. So that means that if we create a space or we create stuff using the Unity engine, if we move on to, say, another platform, or we create our own, we can take the entire world and our assets with us and be able to host it ourselves, or provide it as a, you know, a kind of a whole kind of a game experience that we can provide to our users, and they can maybe build onto it or whatever, like Minecraft or whatever. So, I mean, my interest is to kind of create an ecosystem and allow people to be able to, you know, have like the ability to be able to do, like, say, screenings of films or movies or whatever, and not worry about people pulling fire, you know, alarms or having bomb threats, you know, or places where we can exchange our own artistic stuff. I mean, the sky's the limit. So right now I've been just working in VRChat, building avatars, learning the whole system, and building some experimental worlds to test it all out and learn it. So.
That's interesting because especially once it becomes more affordable, people definitely want to be able to connect and forego the cost of physically flying places. But of course, some people might raise the question of, will that eliminate people's need to get together? And it's like, I don't know if it will necessarily, but it may certainly alleviate an issue that, you know, exists.
Actually, I think it would augment it. Much like back in the early days, say the 90s, when everybody got hooked to IRC and they started meeting each other, you know, people from other cities that they, total strangers, you know, the dating pool would increase. And eventually those people, you know, met in real life. You know, they didn't just stop and just live through the computer. They actually were drawn to want to actually meet them in flesh and blood.
Yeah, if it was a relationship that transcended that at all, because some other people are perfectly fine just continuing to maintain it as a virtual thing, and that's actually how they like it. And ability to be a little more present, like you said, there's definitely something there to physically being, not physically, but I guess having a representation of your physical self next to other representations. In fact, when we watch like Ghost in the Shell or the anime or anything like that, you do typically have representations of people in virtual reality where you like see their little avatars and they like talk business or shady dealings and they like log off into their different parts of the world. And it's a very attractive concept on that front. So I take it you didn't exactly, Jonathan, find that many options as of yet for, you know, what you were looking for, but at least you have sort of an idea of what you were going in there for. And that is actually segueing really well into what I was going to ask earlier of both you and Brian, and you actually answered my question before I asked it. But what about you, Brian? What did you sort of get out of the convention, or what did you go in there looking to experience?
Well, I had never done VR before. I knew about it, you know, and
was this your first, not even once VR?
It was my first time. Yeah, I was getting my VR cherry popped. Well,
yeah, he was a virgin.
And I wanted, you know, it was my first time really, like, I knew about it, you know, and everything, but I hadn't actually done it. And I was going in specifically to experience it, but also to see what people were doing with it and try to think about all of the ways in which it can be applied and where its potential was at. And I mean, pretty much everything that you and Jonathan have been saying, I agree with. I think that it has a lot of potential as a useful tool for people, you know, whether it's for jobs, for entertainment, for leisure, for education. I think it has all of those things. The only thing that I'm concerned with is the dark side of the same potential. It's just a tool, right? So, it is a tool that is used to interact with data, and it does it in a way that previous tools that we've had couldn't do it. We've always tried to immerse ourselves more and more into a medium. We went from stories that were told, that were just passed on verbally from person to person, to the written language, to the print, to audio and radio, to film, and so on, and better special effects, more immersion, video games, and how can we get deeper? And VR seems to be the next natural step. But like all of the things that preceded it, I think that there is something that concerns me. And this isn't something that is the fault of the medium. Like, I realize that this is just the tool itself. But one thing that I cannot shake is this dreadful feeling, and it has to do with the fact that one of the people that was speaking at the conference was this woman who was talking about the ways in which she would like to use virtual reality to tell stories and to enhance journalism. But when you look deeper at the stuff that she has in mind, it's actually quite terrifying, because she's not like all the stuff you guys were talking about. Let's say you're interested in going into you want to be a surgeon, and then there's a program that can show you how to do surgery in a safe, to simulate it in a safe place, where you're not hurting anyone or whatever. Or if someone wanted to learn how to do you want to do history, and they wanted to go to different parts of the world, they want to do some virtual tourism, or they wanted to learn about things as they were, whatever it is, provided that the people providing the service, providing the programs and everything, are all working from the idea that the point is to be as factual and accurate as possible, then I think that is a completely healthy thing to do. The problem is that I have a concern that there are people who don't have those kinds of ends, and they see this as a tool to push stuff that they believe in.
Oh,
and
yeah.
use this in a way that is actually quite nefarious, even if the person themselves thinks that they're totally right. So, for example, I saw discussions about this years ago, too. I remember Brianna Wu. Okay, you might know her from Gamergate, and she developed that game Revolution 60, and she had taken an interest in virtual reality, and she comes from a lot of money. So she was able to, with her connections and all the money she makes, she was able to pretty much like get her hands on this technology earlier than most. She was able to get involved with it. And the only thing she could think about is ways in which she can use the technology to more efficiently, essentially, I don't want to say brainwash like in some sort of conspiratorial way, but essentially lie to people. And I think that because VR can be something that can be really immersive, and for some people it can be an emotional experience too, it's actually I think that it can be a really effective way of getting people to believe something that isn't true, to essentially spread misinformation. And that is on top of everything you guys had just said, which I agree with, and I'm on board with all the positives. Those are the negatives, and those are the things that I'm concerned with. And I guess they're not really negatives because they don't truly exist, but they're potential negatives. Like this woman who did a TEDx talk, she basically she wants to make virtual experiences. They look like video games, but they're not really interactive. So think of like Gone Home, sort of, where you can look at things, but you're not actually doing much to influence the outcome of something. So she might have, this woman who I'm talking about, I can't remember her name. It was kind of long. I know it was like La Peña, Nani de La Peña. And she had one virtual experience game where you basically, it was the story of Trayvon Martin. And it was done in such a way that it was spinning a narrative. It wasn't really like telling the story in a positive, I would say positive, but in a factual light. It was basically saying the story she wanted to tell. And if you think about that, she also wanted to talk about things like online harassment, specifically towards women. And she wanted to make virtual experiences that other people can put themselves into with the goal of selling them an idea, a belief that she holds that may not actually reflect reality. And I think that that's something that concerns me. I think that
and it's difficult to deal with because what you're talking about is free speech in a
absolutely
illusion. Because it's like we had the development of what's it called? Everything from Photoshop to now they can synthesize any given person's speech.
Oh, your
oh, my audio mess up?
I can hear it.
Oh. Okay, now I hear you.
Okay, yeah. So you can our ability to motion capture a person's face and create a character on TV that is dead. All of these things allow for us to present things in a dramatic way, in an impactful way. We can create entirely, like if you look at, I've got a friend on Facebook who's a compositor, and and they go through the background of all these different things, where things that you just don't even really think of that they would alter at all or even need to be altered. They do alter them because it gives a different feel to the setup of the scene and to the the feeling of it. And so what you're talking about is a tremendous number of more and more powerful tools to present a certain feeling to people. And it doesn't come through consciously. It comes through in more of a subconscious level. And so there always is kind of when you have something that can so powerfully impact people, there's so much greater responsibility on each individual to try to overcome our natural proclivities to trust our instincts, to follow our heart, to all of these different things that we're told throughout our life that are good things, and they are, on a certain level, and that is to go by our gut. But we're already dealing with generations of people who their gut instincts are based upon the characters that they saw on TV and how they interacted, which is unlike reality. People's whole ideas about the male and female dynamic, can come entirely from the media and the television shows that they watched and all of that sort of programming, and could be in their experience in their real life can be given not as much weight as their experience in their virtual life of just watching TV. And that's already been a long-standing problem, where people just they have this view of reality that is completely contradictory to their real world experience. And so that's not going to get better. That's going to get worse as our tools get more and more developed. And so you can't go in there and say, oh, okay, well, this was too powerful a tool. I mean, they would have done that with the newspaper, and so, but there's still a matter of, what minds are responsible enough to be able to recognize all the risks they're putting themselves in by exposing themselves to ever more powerful mediums. And I think that is a kind of a question that'll have to be broached at some point, because free speech and the maturity of a mind are things that we already kind of separate. We don't necessarily want children to be exposed unless their parents are cool with it, but we don't want to just automatically expose children to absolutely every kind of media and every idea and things of that nature, because their minds are not really capable of doing as good a job of separating the truth from the falsehood as a more mature mind. And so it's as these things become further and more and more powerful, it will take an ever more mature mind to be able to separate. And I think we've already crossed that threshold. TV has already crossed the threshold. We've got the people who they're, even as adults, their minds are not mature enough to really separate the truth from the falsehood. And what do we do about that? We can't just go and say, oh, it doesn't matter that you're an adult. You don't get to watch TV because you're not capable. You don't get to do that.
No, I wouldn't call for that. But I think that.
But it's still difficult. I understand what you're saying.
I agree with that. But I think that even like with television, people can separate the fact that they're watching television and that they're watching, say, a fictional drama, even if it says something like, this was based on real events. There's a difference between.
Yeah, it's not immersive.
Tell the difference between watching something that's intended for entertainment and going to school and getting educated on something.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
talking about a
In the case of
singular
virtual
event.
reality, not only can they choose to conflate those things and say, because that was the thing about with Gamergate, this was like from years ago, a couple of years back, where there was somebody who blew this whole thing wide open with the Game Developers Conference a couple of years ago, where the central goal of the people that attended the GDC, which are not like, you know, mainstream game developers that for the most part are just looking to turn a profit, but people who instead are up to something a lot more long-reaching, where basically they were thinking games should be used as a tool of social justice to educate people. And so what we'll do is we'll use the fact that kids love games as a means to educate them on the ideas that we think are the most important. And that was their aim. And so, and that was actually messed up and scary back then, because
Oh yeah, it goes further back. I mean, people have been
sure.
pushing messages to kids or to whoever based upon what they like since there was the possibility of any kind of media at all, since printed word was even possible. And so it's not a new problem. It's just become a more potent problem.
It's exactly like as we move forward, like one could I would get on board with the idea that we've already debunked studies that have tried to show that playing video games that have sexualized women will cause you to be a misogynist towards women, which we already know is not true. Just as playing video games that have violence will not make you more violent. It will, at the most, it may make you like less more sort of inured to it, like where it doesn't affect you as much, but that's still not necessarily true. However, when you disguise entertainment as education, I think that's where it becomes a problem potentially. And again, I'm all for free speech. I'm not saying that this should not be allowed. What I'm saying is that if this is going to be the direction that our technology is going, then it's more important than ever that more people are able to essentially create more voices, so that the people who are looking to essentially do what the old saying about with art is, art uses lies to tell the truth. But what these people are doing is they're using a form of the truth in order to tell lies, and they're doing it under the guise of education. It's sort of like how people assume that because a film is called a documentary, it's factual, when in many cases documentaries leave things out because the people who make them have something that they're trying to sell at the end of the day. And it takes somebody who's relatively steadfast and aware in order to challenge that. But sometimes I think that you need more people involved with the actual media making itself that will keep this sort of thing in check, because I think that the thought that an ideologue can have control over VR and then use it on kids in school to teach them what they want them to believe, considering how colleges are now, is a bit harrowing, to say the least.
Yeah,
I just have to say something.
Down to is this: you need to make sure that there's multiple communicators who are giving alternative voices, and that you don't have just one group of people with various ends in utter control and dominant in that media. And so it's just you need to make sure there's plenty of voices in that media.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just have to say, given that what we now know that we didn't know at the time when Twitter came into existence and YouTube became this hot thing, and all these social and sharing platforms got created, we didn't know all the crap that was going to come out after all that stuff, the doxing and the shadow banning and just the social justice using it for spreading their misinformation and all that kind of stuff. We didn't know any of that stuff, but now knowing this stuff and this new emerging platform coming out, I think it would be a big mistake that we don't play at the game as well, that we just let those people exploit it and that we don't add our voice to the table. So I think it's very important for our groups to be able to have a say as well, because I don't want there to be where at high school, whatever, they put people to VR experiences where you become a girl, a young girl, and you're walking down home in a dark street, and it's scary and terrifying, and you can kind of glimpse that there's something stalking you and that you're going to be raped. I don't want this thing where this
And it's a guy wearing a shirt that has video games on it. Oh my God.
Yeah. But you come home and you have this experience, like the feeling of what it would be like, according to them, being a young girl, being scared of everything around you, and that you're going to be raped.
Yeah, or that you're going to be harassed or raped by a certain particular kind of individual that they always portray as the nefarious kind. Like, it's now one of the things that Brian covered earlier is like, oh well, we know the difference between just watching TV show and and reality, and that's true on a specific particular level. But when you talk about a general overview of reality, when you're not thinking of things that are very, like, I'm talking about this one particular movie and this one particular, but when instead it's
about reality,
it's your conclusions about a million little events that you don't necessarily really think about. Like when you
people
watch
turn a
TV,
blind eye to the fact that there's homeless guys and men are suffering because their ideas from everywhere are like, well, women are hurt by things, so women suffer more. So that's
where's
just
that idea comes from? Because from
about
10,000 times hearing the same story.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And so it's not even one particular, you may realize when you're watching a show that
stories,
is just one
about
story.
ourselves as
But
humans.
when you watch stories after stories after stories and tens of thousands of them, your actual, as a human being, the way that you build memories and understandings about reality are based upon your experiences, and those become an aggregate experience. And so this is from my own personal experience. I know that there were ideas I had when I was first, when I was a young adult that I did not realize were completely wrong about the way that humans interact and the way that humans work. And it only later on I realized where those ideas even came from, and they came from TV. And so it's like there's kind of an aggregate of experiences, like one of the recent things that people don't pick up on is now how Russian people, for the past 10 years, every bad guy in every show that you ever watch is a Russian guy. And then one of the ways that you can identify a bad guy in any television show is if he's wearing a muscle shirt. That's, instantaneously that's a bad guy. And so there are these stereotypes of how who is a bad guy,
white hat and black
uniform is, exactly what their uniform is, how to identify them, that come so automatically to mind you don't realize you were taught them. And that's the thing, is you just say, oh, I see this person and I figure they're probably a bad guy. Now, why do you figure that? Do you have any real actual personal experience? No, but you get 10,000 fake experiences that all tell you the exact same thing. They speak with one voice. A guy in a muscle shirt is somebody that you shouldn't trust and is probably up to no good. But have you had that personal experience?
He's violent. He's going to beat you up in an alley.
Right. Have you had that personal? No, you haven't really. And if you were asked about it directly and consciously, that it's like, oh no, it's just a guy on TV. Of course, I don't necessarily believe that. And so there's these things that slip in, and that's kind of, as we go into these more and more powerful mediums, the more they are going to act on our animal, ways of learning, the ways that we, categorize experience itself. Because once it's virtual reality, it is to every part of your brain a real experience at that point. And so it's not even flat anymore. It's not even just in one place. It is you experiencing it. And so the how much you will get as an aggregate of your personal experiences will definitely have more of a subconscious kind of effect, where you're taught lessons you don't you're being taught.
Well, think of it this way. You could probably remember, without even paying attention, pretty much what you did today, can't you? And you didn't go and set out and try to memorize it like you had to memorize what you did for the day, because we learn best through experiences. So imagine if you have like an idea or a story that you want to tell that people have to believe in. The best way to do it is through experiences. You just experience it once, and it'll stick a lot better than watching 20 of the same kind of experiences through just a straight film on the screen or reading it in a book. It's one more level.
So it is going to definitely be a very powerful medium. And there were questions that we're bringing up now that need to be Yeah, they got to be addressed, and that's what science fiction has been doing for a long period of time. Is kind of saying, hey guys, let's make sure we consider this, so when it rolls around, we know exactly what's happening. So you've got all these things where we discussed the horrors of technologies in here and there as these warning stories, but at the same time, I'm also afraid that, and here's where I know we got to kind of wrap up fairly soon here, and so I don't want to diverge
Wait, we're
too
going to
much.
take it into the after show for the patrons.
But yeah, is the idea in AI. We've been going on for so long about all the possible ways in which AI could go wrong that people have in general become afraid of it. And so the same thing happens anytime that we've got these new technologies. They certainly have dangerous things we need to check out. They certainly need to be addressed. We need to be aware of them. But then if we focus so much on those, then we end up fearing it, and a lot of times that fear can end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, as I think is part of what's going on with the development of AI, is that people are so scared of creating an AI that will an intuitive and a strong AI that will hate humanity, that they're wanting to make sure that, okay, well, we got to make sure to put it in a box and basically torture it, and try to half lobotomize it, and that way it won't hate us. That it's really not the best idea. Perhaps instead what we need is our AI to go past the whole dumb animal phase that we've had to go through slowly, and it just warp right straight through it to like the fucking Zen monk version of consciousness, where it's, let's make sure that we don't get it stuck in that halfway between point that humanity's been going through for a real long time. So
well, the thing
anyway,
is,
my two cents.
I'll just one last thing. The thing is, technology. People have always tried to slow down or stop technology, but it just keeps rolling forward. I think the worst response that we could ever have, knowing that AI is already here, it's just not in the mainstream yet, the general public isn't using it yet, is to fear it, because it's already being developed and it's already being employed into big business, government, and all those systems. They already have it.
Yeah, well, it's
and
not
if they're the only ones
it's
that
not
have it.
software AI, but it is.
No.
It is a type of AI that is. People for years have been hearing about AI as this broken, half-assed, thing. But since the development of neural networks, it is a totally different animal now, and that's what people are not getting. Is it is now it's about to be fucking here. A conscious, a conscious thinking, self-aware machine is just barely over the horizon. We're talking about definitely within our lifetimes, and that has been a reality that nobody's been willing to face, because for the longest time they thought it was going to happen quickly, but the way they were going about it was completely wrong. It was just totally wrong, and now we're doing it a totally different way. It is radically different when you go from the programmatic linear type of development of AI, of the weak AIs of yesteryear, to the neural networks of today. It is just completely a different thing, and people don't understand how vast of a difference and how exponential the growth rate is now at this moment.
What I'm saying is knowing this right now is, I think it would be a big mistake for the general public to try to kind of reject it, because it's coming regardless. And I think the best thing you could do for AI is to actually have the general public to start, working with it, because that's where innovation happens. It happened with, say, YouTube. YouTube was just a place to show videos and stuff like that, but it was the users that innovated and actually turned it into a profitable thing, and now people are basing their careers on putting stuff on YouTube. So it needs to get into the hands. Technology needs to get to the hands of the general public, so the general public can help steer it in the direction that's beneficial for the general public, for humanity as a whole, and not just sit in the laboratories or big business or the government. It has to also get into the general public to use.
Yeah, and making sure that the general public has access to the to all that's going on in AI is something that I think is very important, so that we can have different development paths, different personalities for whenever a conscious AI does tend to start to develop. If we end up creating a super intelligence, we don't want it to be just one of them, just in case that one of them is pissed off about all the stupid shit we did to it.
It's going to be open source.
Yeah, we need a lot of them to all develop simultaneously and independently, and it's really going to be something that's important for our survival, I think. But hey, I posted a link there for apparently there was a when it comes to going back to the displays and the VR displays and stuff like that, there was a VR company that did the personal displays systems for Northrop Grumman. I can't pronounce that worth of shit. And so military contract stuff. And apparently, so they do have the retinal display technology. They just have like a special kind of terminology around it. It's the Microvision company is apparently who's been pioneering it. And I dropped a link there. So we ought to put that in the low bar as well. And I think you'd like to check that out because I don't know if they had
it. Looks like they've worked a lot on miniaturizing it, so it looks like it's pretty much almost there to hit the consumer market.
Oh yeah. I think that that's the direction they're headed now. If you look at their website, they're going from being military contractors. A lot of times they're just like their websites are just nuts and bolts, and here's the bare facts. And then you can see when they're starting to get into the consumer market, because it starts looking their website starts looking sleek and
user friendly,
and pretty. It starts getting prettied up instead of being a hunk of metal that I've got another one where I can see that they're still in the development phase. I was looking at the HIT lab where they're also doing, they're researchers in the same thing, and their website is just so horrible. It's such a complete just science and nothing but that, no frills, kind of website.
Well, do check out the Meta 2. Check out the TED Talk that the founder Meron Gribitz or whatever did on it. That was the thing that kind of sold me on it, but.
Oh yeah, I peeked at it real quick, and it looks pretty neat because you basically just have a semi-reflective screen that kind of surrounds your vision that you look through, and it just projects onto the screen. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we can check out that and other VR things in like videos and such. We can definitely do that in the after show where we don't have to worry about the 20-second rule. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for stopping by and talking to us about your impressions from the VR conference. And it's always good to hear from the feet and the eyes on the ground. Keeping up with the latest. And thanks for taking the time to do it.
Yeah,
and appreciate it, guys. So thanks so much, everyone, also for tuning in, and all of our listeners as well. And we will see you guys next time. Same Cherry time, same Cherry channel, which means unpredictably sometime soon. Thanks.